The following is a special presentation of the Decibel Geek podcast.
Enough. I got a job in Atlantic. I just love to buy I love a waitress who
A behind-the-scenes look at some of your favorite records. The stories behind the songwriting as well as the recording circumstances broken down for you and explained by a key player in the album's creation. Track by track, memory by memory, this is Albums Unleashed. Alice Cooper's DaDa with special guest Dick Wagner.
Wow, with an intro like that, you know this is going to be fun today. Welcome back, everybody. Once again, this is the Decibel Geek podcast. I'm Aaron Camaro, joined as always by Chris Sinzak. How's it going, my friend?
Doing great. Really excited to share this new thing we're doing with everybody.
Yeah, we always are talking about new ideas and different things we can do, you know, and we like to do the year in reviews, and we like to do Radio Sucks radio shows, but we're always looking to expand and try to take new perspectives on hard rock and heavy metal, and I think we're on to something here today.
Yeah, and I do want to quickly mention on the Facebook.com/Decibel Geek page, we had a lot of really good feedback. I asked for feedback just in general on the show, and
thank you guys.
A lot of interesting stuff, good and bad, and we want to hear it all, and we appreciate it. And you know, we're 134 episodes in, and we're trying something brand new, so that's kind of cool.
Yeah.
But this is a thing we're going to do called Albums Unleashed, and this is the first installment of that, and we have more planned for this year. And basically, what it is we're going to take an album that either is it's a classic, legendary album, or it could be an album that's kind of an undiscovered gem. And in this case, it's a little bit of both. Yeah. This album did not do great sales-wise when it came out, because it kind of came out in a lost era. This is Alice Cooper's DaDa. And but it's become kind of a cult favorite among listeners over the years, especially people like me who just got into Alice in the past few years.
Right. And the thing about this album is it's, like you say, it's kind of a lost treasure where a lot of people don't really talk about it, and I think that's the idea behind why we chose this one.
Yeah. And
because we had a chance, we talked to Dick Wagner in the past, and he was such a great guy, and basically this whole thing is just an excuse to get Dick Wagner back on the show.
Sure. He came he came into Nashville about a little over a month ago, and when I knew he was coming to town, first I was excited to meet him finally in person and see him perform live. And if you listen to the bonus track that come out later this week, we go into that.
Yeah.
But when it was announced that he was coming, I've been thinking about this Albums Unleashed idea for a while, and I was like, he's the perfect guy to kick this off with. And I asked him, and I was like, you want to do DaDa? And he said yes. And it went great, and he was, more than forthcoming. So you're going to hear like a lot of ambient noise because we were actually meeting in a hotel lobby to do this. But you can hear everything nice and clear.
That's kind of cool, though. I always like that ambiance when we're doing interviews.
Right. And, another reason to do this one is the first one is there's not a lot known about this album. Alice Cooper himself has said in many interviews this is kind of his blackout period, and he doesn't remember even making this album.
Right. Yeah, I've read that.
So, and Bob Ezrin is legendarily known as he was going through some issues, too, at this time, and so was Dick, but I think Dick probably has the most lucid memory of making this record.
Right, and that speaks for why this album is the way it is.
Yeah, it's a classic album, and so we've got a lot to get to. Before we get into that, I'm not going to have time to do the Geeks of the Week this week, the people that retweeted and shared the 420 episode. A lot of you did, and I will go ahead and tell you that we will mention all of those next week. And if you want to be Geek of the Week next week, this is how we do it if you're a first-time listener. If you like this episode and you want to help spread the word about the show and help us build our listenership, because it's all you guys that do it, just either share on Facebook the link to this episode or retweet the link on Twitter.
Right.
And that's basically, it's word of mouth. We're trying to do this grassroots style, and we get more listeners every week when you guys do it. It really does not go unnoticed. We really appreciate it.
So if you did it last week and you also do it this week, you're all going to get mentioned next week.
You will.
Awesome. Along with that, you mentioned the SoundCloud, the bonus track that we do. That's going to be coming out. We took a little extra time with Dick Wagner to talk about the show he put on here in Nashville.
Right.
The only way you're getting invited to that is to be involved in the conversation at Facebook. So join up with us on Facebook.
Yep.
Also check out our website, www.decibelgeek.com. You can do all kinds of stuff there. Order your Decibel Geek shirt, tip your DJs, go to Amazon
Yep.
or order the DaDa album on Amazon. You're going to want to after this is over.
Yeah, just go through the link.
our link on the website because you're going to help us keep the lights on here and keep this show going on for free. While you're there, you're going to find all kinds of great articles, and it's just an awesome website. You're going to love it.
And absolutely. And if you haven't had a chance to check it out, I hope this will also lead you to buy Dick's book. It's called Not Only Women Bleed, and it's an excellent memoir.
Indeed, and like we said, go through the link on the Decibel Geek website and order the book, order the CD, order all this stuff.
Absolutely.
Buy a car, buy an airplane.
Absolutely, and we get a kickback from that. And just real quick, some business. We mentioned we go over a review I found on the internet of DaDa where somebody had kind of formulated their own theories on what the album meant.
Yeah.
And I want to give credit where that's due.
Yeah, for sure.
It was written on a site called ultimate-guitar.com, and I'll put the link in the show notes, but it was just written by a person with the username MadPaperboy89.
And you can tell by this article, and the reason why we used it is because this guy is a true passionate Alice Cooper fan.
Yeah, and it was written all the way back in January 2008. So if you are the person that wrote this, get in touch with us because we want to give you full credit because it's a really interesting theory, and you'll enjoy Dick's reactions to the theories.
Yeah.
So
as will everybody else.
links to all of this stuff, how you can order a T-shirt, all that stuff. So we got a lot to get to. So let's get to our talk with Dick Wagner. This is DaDa, Albums Unleashed.
Let's do it.
I got to talk to him a bit. He's doing great. I don't know if he even remembers the DaDa album because it was done under such strange circumstances.
Yeah, that's why we wanted to talk to you about this because you're basically the principal songwriter on this album.
I am, and I play guitar and bass.
Oh, okay. And so kind of take us back to how this album got going because from what I remember reading, Alice was in Arizona and was really not interested in doing an album at the time. And you had to didn't Ezrin basically send you down there to get him to come up to Toronto for this?
That's right. That's right. So he was supposed to make one more album for Warner Brothers. And so it was the last album for Warner Brothers, and he was not going. He and Ezra were having a kind of a fallout about whether he would record in Toronto or whether they would come down to Phoenix and record down there.
Yeah.
Bob wanted him to be in Toronto. Bob didn't want to leave his family and his surroundings. Alice didn't want to leave his family and his surroundings. There was no material written yet, and so they were at a crossroads there, and Warner Brothers needed one more album. So Bob called me up and he said, look, will you go to Phoenix and try to get Alice to write and get him to commit to coming to Toronto to record? Mm-hmm. And I said, all right, I'll do it. I think I was living in, I forget where I was living at the time. Might have been New York, I'm not sure, but I went to Phoenix and went to Alice's house. I stayed there with him, and every day I'd bring out the guitar, the keyboard, and I'd start writing. And I started coming up with titles, and I started thinking about this is his last Warner Brothers album, so let's have a character called Formerly Warner.
So that's where that comes
Yeah.
That's the
When you said that to me earlier,
formerly
it rang a bell
Warner
like that.
Brothers.
from. Right, because he's about to be done with them.
So this was going to be an album about leaving Warner Brothers, in some way.
Right.
So I came up with this title and a couple of other titles from this album and started writing songs. And Alice wasn't doing anything. I mean, he was just, I don't know if he was like immobile at the time or really seriously not interested, but he finally came out of vegetation and came into the living room where I was writing and started writing with me. And so the songs started to roll out, and we created a few songs. In the meantime, Alice's manager came up with $90,000 from someone, from Warner Brothers maybe, I don't know, but to entice Alice to go ahead and make this record.
Yeah.
So he got the money, I got him starting writing songs, and together he and I went to Toronto. And it was the wintertime in Toronto. It's unpleasant in the wintertime in Toronto.
Especially coming from Arizona.
Yeah, it's a shock.
Exactly. Coming up, laying by the pool and
Right.
all that. So we go to Toronto and we rent this 2-bedroom suite. I think it was in the Hilton Hotel. So he had one room and I had another, and there was a living room in between where we could get together and do a little bit of writing. So we would write a song and then the next day record it. But we were really getting drunk every night. I mean, just drinking all this vodka.
So both of you were pretty excessive on the drinking at that
Man,
point.
I'm telling you, I wasn't. I'm not a drinker at all. I still don't drink.
Uh-huh.
But I was trying to go along with the program here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, keep him happy and keep him writing. And it was working.
So was he very temperamental at this point, like as far
No.
as getting him to work on things?
No, not at all. He's always very, very cool about that. Because he likes to write too.
Yeah.
And that was the first time that Alice and I spent time really talking about his life, my life, you know, like becoming really closer friends.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Through a lot of revelations, which I won't go into here, but we got to know each other much more. We're always very successful at writing because it just comes so naturally. And we think alike and we have the same kind of humor. So we got a bunch of songs finished, recorded. We go down the next day, go to the studio, record. We finish. We'd go back to the hotel and go down to the dining lounge area where we'd have dinner. And then usually every night we'd go over to the piano. I'd play piano and he and I would sing, you know, some of the hits or whatever we would think of to entertain all the people in the lounge.
So the people in the lounge had no idea
No.
that they were in what they were in for when they were hanging out in there.
No.
Was there a lot of people there that had like no idea who you guys even were?
Oh, no, I think pretty much everybody knows Alice Cooper. I mean, his
Yeah.
face is very recognizable.
Right.
They don't know me from Adam, but they're learning to.
Yeah.
So we'd go play the piano and sing. It was great. People responded. They loved it. We'd do that. We'd drink. We'd sing. We'd play. Then we'd go upstairs to the suite and write. Mm-hmm. And it was working. The album was working. At this diner, there were these two waitresses. One a tall, blonde, beautiful blonde. One a tall redhead, beautiful redhead. And they wore these black dresses that were slid up the side all the way up to their ass. And they would wait on us. They were very lovely. One night, we're back at the hotel upstairs, and we were going to write a song about these two girls. So the concept, Scarlett and Sheba,
Right.
came up. The blonde was Sheba and the Scarlett was the redhead. So we were writing the song, we wrote the song, and then it was time to drink heavily and then go to bed. So at like 10 o'clock in the morning, there's a knock on the door of the suite. And I heard the knocking, and I got out, went to the front door, opened it up, and here were the two girls standing there. It was 10 o'clock in the morning. Each one of them holding a piece of black forest cake. And they said, "Do you want a piece?"
There's some temptation for
And
you.
I'm going like, there's a double entendre there.
Yeah.
So I said, come on in. And Alice come out of his room and sat the girls down and said, listen, we wrote a song about you. You're immortalized.
Darling wants to hold me, wearing just a red velvet hat. She was in the shadows, waiting for a turn and back. In the parlor where the lights are low, a bunch of sister act out, watch their show. They're trying to kill me, wanna pick my bones. Methodically, erotically, I just want your body, Sheba. I don't want your brain. Scarlet gets what's left of my remains.
So we'll sing it for her. And we did. And Scarlett and Sheba from that album.
Yeah.
And it's really about dominatrix kind of sex. And
Right. Yeah, you can tell from the lyrics for
and
sure.
the girls were like, oh my God, wow.
Were they flattered or
liked it, or-
mortified?
I think they were mortified. They were mortified, but they were flattered by it.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
But they came there to get laid, and they didn't get laid.
But they got a song written about
But
them.
they got a song
That's
written
all.
about them, you know. So, no, the policy was, you know, we didn't really have women coming around to disturb the writing and create problems. And Alice was married at the time. I mean, married at the time, still is.
Right.
But to the same girl, Cheryl. And he wasn't going to do anything with these girls anyway. Me, might have. You know. But we were basically just being good guys
Right.
and writing a song about these girls, which we recorded that day. And so that's part of the DaDa album too, the Scarlet and Shiva story.
That's one of my favorite songs on the record.
Yeah.
I kind of love the Middle Eastern vibe you
Yeah.
put in on that. Where'd that sound come from?
Ezra created it on something,
Now you were
a
mentioning
synthesizer or something.
you mentioned Alice and Bob were having a stalemate about where they wanted to record this thing. Did that boil over into the studio? Were they not getting along while this album was being
No, they were
made?
fine.
They were?
fine.
Okay.
Once we got to Toronto and got locked into the fact that we were doing it, there was no problem.
Good.
There was no problem. There was always creative process.
Right.
So it's all we would do is creating. I was doing a little more on the production side on this record, and I played all the guitars and I played bass on the record. So I did quite a bit on this record, including writing it. And I love the songs on DaDa. I mean, I think that they're just really experimental and beautiful, and they have no purpose in life commercially.
Right. Yeah.
They have
Yeah,
no-
you can tell that for sure.
There's nothing we didn't make any attempts to like write a hit song or do any of that. It was just this concept of the old man in the attic.
That's what I was gonna say, because at that time, you know, Bob Ezrin's pretty known for like getting together with bands and doing these concept albums, like albums that tell a whole story
Yeah.
within it. You know, like The Wall, like Music from the Elder from Kiss. And this album, DaDa, seems to really have some kind of like a theme to it, where it's like a concept album. Does it
It
all
is a
fit
concept.
together, tell a story?
More or less, I think it. Yeah, it does. You know, and really, it's all about. It's all from the idea of being formerly with Warner Brothers. This was the slap in the face for Warner Brothers, but with this character in the attic.
So you guys felt like, you know, since you really didn't give two shits about what Warner Brothers thought about you at this point, that you're free to do pretty much whatever you
Oh
want,
yeah,
right?
and we did. It was a very loose album in the sense that it had no hits, it had no attempt to be successful. It was just the music we wanted to make every day.
Yeah, because Warner didn't get behind it at all promotion-wise. They just buried it, basically.
That was it. That was the last album. It was
Yeah.
over.
So you guys kind of knew when you were making it, they're not going to push this anyway, right?
Well, we kind of figured they wouldn't.
Right. So, yeah, because I was going to ask you about the theme of it, because there's a lot of interesting theories out there about the concept of this album. Because Alice hasn't talked at length about it. And there's
What are the theories?
there's one I brought. This guy wrote a very long thing about what he thought each song meant, and I'm not going to read the entire thing verbatim.
Let me read it.
Well, let's see.
I don't have my glasses on.
check it
Well, I'll tell you. It's like he says, the album. All right, the opening track, DaDa. He says the creeping opening with Bob Ezrin talking to Alice, apparently pretending to be a psychologist, asking about the man's son, Sonny.
Right.
When he implies that Sonny is the man's daughter, showing the dehumanizational tactics his dad uses to break Sonny emotionally.
That's pretty close.
Yeah?
Is it?
Yeah.
I think this guy, if this isn't true, it's a great concept if you didn't come up with it
Well, I
this
think
way.
that's pretty much what it was.
Well, the main theory he had was this is basically a story of a mentally disturbed person with multiple personalities, and the songs kind of represent these different personalities.
Yeah, I guess maybe you could say that too.
Right.
Not so much being a multiple personality, but being completely mixed up about who he was.
Right.
He didn't know if he was the daughter or the son. I mean, he wasn't sure. Neither was the father, the old man. They didn't quite know what gender he was, and that's really the story of Alice Cooper. People,
Right.
whether he's a woman or a girl or a man when he first started out, you know.
Yeah, the androgynous thing.
Right, the
Yeah.
androgynous thing. So
Right. Well, and then like one song that's interesting is "Enough's Enough."
longest song.
It's kind of it sounds like a lighthearted song musically.
Yeah, it's upbeat.
But the subject matter is very stark in contrast.
Yeah.
You know, because about a man basically whoring his child out. Is that? I mean,
Well, not that really. He's cruel to his son.
is that what it is?
Yeah.
Because I'm talking about his mother dying and stuff like that. It just,
What his dad did to his mother.
okay.
You know, so the son is reflecting on what the dad did to the mother, and therefore to him, and
Right.
enough's enough. You know, I've had enough of your dad. So
Yeah, because like the line, "Go fucking make a buck." I mean, like some people are like, "Is that child prostitution, or what does that mean?" You know, it's a
I guess it could be. It wasn't really thought of that way, and I think that really the words are "go buck and make a buck."
gotcha.
Go buck and make a buck. Wanna show me how, boy? I wish you lots and lots of luck. Are you leaving now, boy? Hey, Dad, trying to keep this sacred. Hey, Dad, how'd you hide the hatred? I just wanna tell you you're a lousy dad. The hell with you. Enough's enough.
Okay.
You know, but it sounds like fuck.
Yeah, because
It does sound like
I'm
fuck.
thinking for 1983, that's pretty damn controversial. You know?
Go fuck and make a buck. Yeah. I think it was Buck. He was a little cowboy, so
Right.
go buck and make a buck.
Right. I got
That
you.
was Dad's command to him to go off and do whatever and make $1, whatever.
Right. And then on
But it's interpreted as fuck, and so it's child prostitution.
So it got-
it wasn't meant that
it was
way.
misinterpreted. Okay.
Misinterpreted.
So I'm glad we have you here to clear up some of this stuff.
Yeah,
'cause
okay.
okay, so for Formerly Warmer, which you've already explained what behind this guy's theory, because I think you'll want to hear this. He says, again, we have the father's perspective, describing the family secret that his brother is some kind of hideous freak locked in an attic. And the sound he hears through the walls like an out-of-tune piano slowly driving him crazy.
No, not really.
Not really. Okay.
Is that character that's in the attic, and saying that, based on the idea that this is a character-driven, these songs are very character-driven, is that supposed to be the same guy from Welcome to My Nightmare?
Like
the one in the
Steven?
attic? Is that Steven? Is there a tie-in there?
Well, it could be. I mean, you could look at it that way, but I don't think it was meant that way. I mean, once again, this started from me sitting there and getting this idea of Formerly Warmer as being formerly Warner Brothers.
Right.
So it starts from that. And then Alice actually made it a character in the attic. So
Okay.
Formerly Warmer pulls up the covers to hide in his wrinkled bed. No dreams go in, no dreams go out of the hole in his wrinkled head. Formerly Warmer.
when I first started writing it, I had no idea it was going to be a character in the attic. It was just a song title to get the whole thing rolling.
So
I mean, you hear it in the interaction between Bob and Alice on the introduction. You know, the psychiatrist talking to the guy, and he has no idea who he is, whether his son is a male or female. He's seriously whacked.
right.
Because like you said, he says, I have a son. No, you don't. Like that.
You have a daughter. Yeah. No. So this is the guy in the attic, and he's obviously a musician. He plays this old piano thing. He has a hole in his head for some reason. I forget what that's about.
Yeah. And well, you mentioned on the opening track. I gotta say, I didn't hear this album when I was a child when this came out.
Good thing. Good thing you didn't.
And it's a good thing I didn't, because that's one of the scariest sounding things is that opening track. And what is causing that ricochet sound on that song, with that reverberating sound, that like the slamming sound on what did you guys do to make that sound?
I don't remember how that happened.
I mean, was that something Ezrin had pretty much put
Yeah,
together?
it's Ezrin's thing, probably. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's his daughter doing the DaDa.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's it. He loves to get his kids involved in his albums.
He
doesn't
always does.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, to me, that's very self-indulgent, but Bob, you did a great job.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, for people that don't know, what is it like to work on an album with him?
It's a mixed blessing. I mean, I love the guy. He's a great producer. We've had our conflicts, but at the same time, you know, we've shared a great history. And he calls me the guy he's most called upon musician during the 70s and 80s.
Absolutely.
And that's true. And he relied on me for a lot of things,
Right.
from arranging to songwriting to guitar playing to just being in general part of the direction of where things went. He's very, what would you call it, dominant in the studio. He wants everything under his control.
Right.
And his control methods with me a few times were a little excessive, but
We talking like lots of takes on certain things till he got it the way he wanted it?
no, just attitudes.
Right.
Do it my way, or you know.
Or that's it, yeah.
It seems
and
like
that's, you know, and you don't tell me to do it that way.
yeah.
You know, I mean, I'm very much an individual, and I've got my own feelings about my songs, and some of the songs were complete and things were added. Not that they're bad, they're good, but you know, I always came to the table with a lot of music,
Right.
and I think I got a lot of it in there.
Yeah.
Seems like Bob has like a picture or something in his vision, and he's unwavering from that. It's like, this is what I picture.
Well,
this is the
what
way
you got
it has
is
to
you
be.
got Alice Cooper, who has vision.
Right.
Right.
You have Bob Ezrin, who has vision.
They have
And
Dick
you have
Wagner.
me, who
Yeah.
has vision. So
It's a lot.
making those visions come together into one thing
Yeah.
is not often easy.
Right.
It takes a lot of work.
And some conflict comes along with
And there's
that.
conflict with it, but you have to have conflict resolution.
Right.
You know, and so we always tried to find a way, and we always did.
Right.
You know, so there's no hard feelings about anything.
Well, the results speak for themselves,
Yeah,
right?
and the results speak for themselves. I mean, a lot of these records I wish had sold more.
Yeah.
Just for me, not for the money, but so people could hear some of this music.
Well, it's the art you want people to hear.
Because
The art.
there's some, you know, if you dig down into some of these records, there's some really great stuff.
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And
I think it's kind of cool. That's basically what we're doing here today. Sure, it's been many, many years since this album's came out, but you know, that's what we try to do when we're talking about, you know, these albums. We're talking to guys like yourself and say, hey, you know, that might have been quite a while ago, but these albums, if you put it on for the first time, it's still brand new to you. You know, you owe it
right.
to yourself
That's
to check
right.
it out, and we want to bring more information about some of
Yeah.
these lost gems that, you know,
Yeah.
when people talk about Alice Cooper, you know, a lot of times they don't bring up the DaDa album, you know, because it's kind of lost
it's
in
kinda
the
lost.
discography a little bit.
It's down there. It's not the most popular or the biggest seller, but it's got a certain genius to it. That,
Yeah.
Yeah, and I will say it's becoming a cult favorite because
Yeah.
if you read online, people that are discovering Alice just now saying, "I just found DaDa and it's amazing," you know,
Yeah.
because people are starting to finally embrace it.
It is amazing.
You
It's
know,
an amazing record.
And it came out at a time where it definitely does not sound like a 1983 album. I mean, I don't know what era it sounds, but it's got its own sound to it.
It has no era.
You know?
I don't think it has any era involved in it at
I mean,
all.
you
It
can't even
wasn't-
really pin it down to a genre. Even you can't say this is a hard rock album or this is this or
No, it
this is
isn't.
that. I mean, you can't
No.
you can't pin it down.
It's like the DaDa era. It's just there and it's real and it stands on its own. It has no. It's ageless. I think that record has no age to it.
Yeah,
Agree.
You know, every time I hear it, it's like, wow, we did that.
yeah.
It amazes me.
It stands out from the pack, especially from the other albums, like the three that came before it. Like, you know, Flush the Fashion, Zipper Catches Skin, and Special Forces all had a certain
Yeah.
cohesiveness. This
Zipper
stands out from
Catches Skin
those.
had a cocaine overdraft on it.
Yeah,
It was a high-speed record.
right.
This one settled into something great.
It's almost like an avant-garde type thing. You know, it's like it's
Yeah,
so
yeah,
edgy.
it's
Like
a good
art
way-
rock
good way to
almost.
put it. Yeah.
Is that where the title comes from?
DaDa.
DaDa?
yeah.
Yeah.
Who came up with that idea? With that the name? Just
I
the
think
name?
Alice Cooper.
He did.
And that was to tie in with the art form
Yeah.
of being
Right.
abstract, and I mean,
Exactly.
it's perfect title for an album like that because that's really what it is.
Yeah.
It's DaDa. You know, you can't pin down that kind of art and say this is a certain kind of art because it's so
Right.
far out there
DaDa-esque,
and different.
yeah. Right.
It applies to
And you
this
look at
perfectly.
that cover, whoever come up with that cover, it's perfect.
I was going to ask you about that because I look at the cover and you know that looks like Alice right there, right?
is. It
Is
is.
that you sitting next to him? Is that
No, that's not me.
because I didn't think
Or
it
is it
really
both?
looked like you were
That's
trying to figure out
Alice,
who
too.
the other. Oh, they're both Alice.
That's the two characters. Yeah.
It's quite a piece of artwork.
It is
you know.
beautiful
Yeah.
Yeah.
thing. It really is.
He wants you to sign that before you leave.
Heck
Oh,
yeah.
let me do that now.
Okay.
You have a pen?
Nah, we'll have to find it.
We'll get
I
one
had one,
when we're
but I
done.
lost it.
All right, then I'll sign it.
But track 4, No Man's Land.
Love this song.
The opening line is genius.
I know.
Got a job as a
Got a
Santa at
job.
a mall in Atlanta.
Right. Not for any talent, but because I was the only one the
Suit would fit. Yeah.
I got a job in Atlanta in a mall playing Santa, not because of any talent, but because I was the only one the suit would fit.
It's way out of time. It's not an ordinary chorus verse thing. It's just that line. It just goes on longer than it should.
Right.
But where it ends is just that line makes me fucking cry.
Yeah,
It's just so good.
it is. It's a great song.
Yeah, that song. It's got a different. You're right. It's got a different kind of flow to it than a normal song that you would think.
Yeah, it
it's
does.
just.
It
It's
does.
like it's off by a little bit, but that's kind of what makes it great.
It is. That's exactly right.
She said, I'm in no man's land. I'm gonna show you a real good time. I'm gonna pay you double overtime. She was begging to be mine, but my job was on the line. Should I stay or should I go? Oh, I just didn't know.
Now, who comes up with the idea of this mall Santa in Atlanta? Is that Alice?
Alice Cooper.
Only Alice Cooper would come up with that.
That's right.
It's
That's the genius
it's
of
genius.
Alice. He comes up with things that are just otherworldly.
And the guy that had the interesting multiple personality theory, he makes some good points on this because he brings up the line, she didn't notice I was thin with a delicate chin, nor the softness of my skin, nor the scent of my other personalities. She didn't see through my disguise, didn't see it in my eyes. She was in for a surprise when she discovered my emotional plurality.
Plurality. Yeah.
clever.
That's an interesting
Oh, that's great.
thing,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah, he was a multiple personality there.
right, and or she'd have to learn to love all 4 of me. I mean,
That's awesome.
it's just genius lyric writing, you know. And musically, it's great. You had those backup singers on the
Yeah.
chorus part, you know, almost like almost a Motown-ish type thing, you know.
Right.
So yeah, there's special memories of
I'm
recording.
gonna
that.
steal, man. Yeah, it was just that was a fun song.
Yeah, it is. And it's-
I loved recording that song. I think it could have been actually recorded better.
oh, really?
Yeah, I would like to have the track be a little more heavy rock.
Right.
A little more.
Yeah, it does come off a little bit more popish. Than,
Yeah, it's a little bit more.
And you can tell by listening to it, it would have lended itself pretty good to be, you know, a little bit heavier, a little crunchier with the guitars.
It
Yeah.
could
Yeah.
have had heavier guitars.
That could call for a cover version, right?
You know, it'd be very interesting if anyone would ever cover something like that.
Yeah, yeah. And then so Dyslexia is next, and
That is the strangest song.
yeah,
Yeah,
it
for
is.
sure.
It really stands out from the pack.
But that was the whole foundation for that song was Graham Shaw and his synthesizers. It started with that feel and that developed into the song it is. But Graham was like new to the writing team, you say,
Right.
and so his input was different. And I think it's good too, but the song does not move me in the same way.
Right.
But it's clever.
Right.
Is this love or dyslexia?
Right. It's a
That's
clever line.
mildly clever.
Right. And this is the only song that I can hear a little bit of 1983 because the synthesizer was very in vogue at that time.
Right, and he did those kind of rhythms. And,
But this is a very self-contained album because it's basically you, Bob, Alice, and then this guy chiming in a little bit.
Right.
But you guys were the main people running this show.
Right.
So maybe that's why it has such such a interesting sound, because there's not too many cooks in the kitchen on this one.
Right.
You know. So then, as we mentioned, Scarlet and Sheba, which I do not understand. I don't understand how any of these songs haven't been played live by Alice. This one in particular would really benefit from like a heavy live rendition.
Oh yeah.
This song could really kick ass live.
It could really kick ass. Yeah.
Yeah, because it's the drumming is great. And while we're on the drumming, this was kind of using like computerized drumming and then live drumming on top. Is that how you
Right.
did it?
Well, we did. It's the Fairlight synthesizer, and we did a lot of the basic tracks with that. And then brought in, I forget even who played drums, but we brought in drummers to play live over the top of it, which a lot of people do today.
Right.
Do the synthesizer tracks, play live drums over the top, and you get the combination of the two.
Yeah.
You know, because kids today, if they're making a record, they want things to be quantized and in time. They all have to feel perfect.
Yeah, it's almost sterile now.
It's sterile for me. I mean,
Yeah, there's no raw emotion.
but when you add the live drums, then you pick up the live feel along with the synthesizer. So it's good to use the both.
Yeah, that gave it its own sound.
But all this pop music that is strictly synthesized and quantized and in time, it's too perfect. I mean,
Yeah,
sounds good if you're just listening for melodies and stuff, but
right.
Or if you just want a straight pulse that is perfect. But bands don't play perfect.
Well, rock and roll isn't about that.
No, it
Yeah,
isn't
it's not
about
supposed
that.
to
It's
be
almost what's
perfect.
not perfect is what makes it great.
Exactly.
Well, and it does in every track that, you know, because you find mistakes and you find little things in records that actually make the record feel right.
Right. Yeah.
It's more personalized that way.
Yeah.
You know,
So
you don't feel like you just bought this album out of a vending machine.
I just did a show last night in Nashville, and you guys were at the show.
Yeah,
so you know-
and
so
we
you
had a
know.
great time.
You know, I mean, it certainly was far from perfect, but we only had 2 days of rehearsal.
You couldn't tell.
Yeah,
guys-
you'd never be able to
These
know.
guys they're a great band. I would love to take them back to Phoenix with me and have them be my band.
Oh yeah.
But they play with Pat Travers most of the time. And in the 2 days, I arrived at the first rehearsal, and they'd already rehearsed, and they already had it ready.
Yeah.
So I had very little to do except learn how to play again.
Well, that's good Nashville musicians for you.
Yeah. So I threw a couple curves at them, and by the time we finally rehearsed on the second day, it sounded fantastic. And then when we hit it live, it got lost a little bit. Like I opened with "Drown in My Own Tears," the Ray Charles song.
Yeah, loved it.
The way it's supposed to be played was not the way it was played, because they got ahead of it. It's like it's supposed to be this long, and they were playing it in halves. You know, like it's hard to explain. The
Right.
chords were falling in the wrong place, and I was like mortified at first, and then I just continued on to try to bring it back in, and it finally got brought back in where it belongs.
Yeah, I could tell that. I could tell that when the song first started. It seemed like
It was-
what the leads you were laying in were out of sync just a little bit,
They
but then
were.
you
They were
brought
way
it
out.
back in.
I brought it around. Well, you have to do that. I mean, you got to know how to do that. But
Well, it takes a pro to be able to recover like that too, though.
well, you know, I'm a pro. I've been doing this quite a few years.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, it was a fun night. To get back to DaDa, the Scarlet and Sheba thing, that was one of my favorite stories in the book. I mean, I got a good laugh out of reading about that.
oh, good.
And so then next is probably my favorite. This is probably my favorite song on the album because I just love how clever it is, and that's "I Love America."
Fantastic.
We did a show about like patriotic songs last year, and I ended the show with that song.
Great.
Because I was like, and all the pop culture references in it are
I
hilarious.
know they're great.
And that brought me back to my childhood. Was talking to like watching the A-Team on Tuesday nights,
Right.
and I was like, wow, I remember that. You know,
Right.
but some of the funniest lyrics on that's like this is the most lighthearted track on the whole album.
Yeah.
And from a lot of reviews I read, people are saying this is such a dark album, and there's a lot of heavy subject matter. But this song sticks out as like here's Alice's old sense of humor coming back.
Exactly. And he wrote this great lyrics.
Yeah.
Finger leg and good. Hey there, this is A.D. Cooper from Cooper
It's our 4th of July sale here at Cooper's Carnival of clean, classic cars at the corner of Collins and Collins. I got a lot full of the finest little cars money can buy if the prices even you can afford. So come on down and say hello to me and Granny and bring the kids to meet my snake. I say bye, Granny says bye, and the snake says, I love General Patton in World War II, my pocket fisherman and my crazy glue. I love the Beav and Wally too, yeah! I love the bomb, hot dogs, and mustard. I love my girl, but I sure don't trust her. I love what the Indians did to Custer.
Was that anything that you guys felt like, okay, we got this album and it's all these deep, heavy, songs, we need something more like this, or was it more natural that it came together that way?
Well, it started by Alice and I coming up with the song, and in the morning, Bob had this guy down there who was programming the Fairlight, and we started messing with the song, and then there was the part where you had to have the Cowboys and Indians.
Yeah. Here they come.
And that's all done on a synthesizer.
Yeah, okay.
There they go.
Here they go.
Yeah.
And then there's the
guns
used
going
car
off.
salesman.
Yeah. Yeah, the blowout sale. Right.
And the snake says,
Yeah. I love that.
That was great. That was great.
You guys must have been laughing in the studio when that one was
You're
spinning.
going crazy, man. It was hilarious.
This whole album just gives me a vibe that it must have been so much fun to create this without any kind of pressure saying, hey,
This was the
we want
best.
to
I
hit.
got to sit behind the board, and Bob was sometimes going, and I would do the production, and that's why I'm credited on it.
Mm-hmm.
But just sit there with my guitar and play all these tracks. It was just total freedom.
Yeah. It's like a playground.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it started that way with the actual writing of the songs.
Right.
We just let it go and come up with this kind of stuff. I mean, it doesn't make sense if you're trying to write a commercial album because it's just too good and too out there.
Mm-hmm.
This
Well, you got expectations put on you then too, where it's like, hey, we need 2 hit singles off this album, who cares what the rest of it is, but you got to have those hit singles. It feels like then, you're...
Commercial writing is like, I hate it. I hate trying to write hits.
Well, it's stifling to the artist,
when I do
right?
once in a while.
Right.
I hate thinking about that as a motivation because to me a hit is an album that people love.
Yeah. That's how you have it.
That's the hit. It isn't like I hit the top 10 and I should get a gold record or none of that means anything. It's all there in the music.
Yeah.
You can see all those lyrics and hear that record and know that there's a lot of love and some deep thinking and deep feeling in it, putting it together. It's a masterpiece.
Yeah, and also like, who says I'm going to write a hit? It's not up to the artist. It's up to the public.
Right.
That's right.
And like record companies forget that.
Yeah.
They're like, okay, we're going to manufacture
And
a hit.
songwriters
Well, yeah,
forget
but
it
they
too.
come through
Yeah.
and have to pick one out, and they say, okay, this is going to be our single, or however,
Yeah.
they works out that
and for
way.
a songwriter, see, it's like this. If you were writing for today's market,
Yeah.
you write a song that is similar to this guy and that guy who just had a big hit.
Yeah.
Okay, you write it. It's similar. It sounds like it's a hit. You get it recorded, you put it out. By the time you do, it's a year later.
Right. Yeah.
And the trend has changed.
It's over.
You're too
Yeah.
far behind the
So
game.
if you're ever writing for the current market, you're always writing for the wrong purpose.
Yeah.
You have to write for you.
Mm-hmm.
What turns you on as an artist, what brings out your artwork.
Right.
You have to be able to do that and forget about the current market and let the market come to you.
Right. So, but this album is almost a passion project because it's
It
like,
feels like it, doesn't
let's
it?
just get
Yeah.
together and write what we want to write and screw the record company. We don't
That's
need it.
right.
Right.
So, what's going on with Fresh Blood? What's the story behind this song?
Well, it is about a vampire,
Okay.
a vampire with a beat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, Prakash came in on this one and played bass, and I didn't play bass on this song. He did. And
Yeah.
that amazing bass line, and that whole feel is, it's me and Ezra really writing that feel. I thought the guitars I played on it were really perfect, just light Fender sound, just not trying to amaze anybody with anything, just something really simple in and out of there.
Mm-hmm.
And then a little Beatles on that finger picking thing from one of the Beatles songs.
I didn't pick up on that. Yeah, I can see what you're saying.
What was that song? God, it was one of the John Lennon songs. And I can't think of it right now.
No, okay.
But I did that kind of guitar part in there. And I thought that was really cool. And the rest of it, the guitar was real kind of ethereal but funky.
In the moonlit streets for somebody that's right. Fresh blood, a sanguinary feast is all he's living for. And he craves it more and more. Showgirls, businessmen in suits in the midnight rain. If they walk alone, are never seen again.
So that was like the overall production feel for that song, to have that kind of feel. And then Alice made up the vampires.
Right. The guy that had the whole theory on what the concept was, he's saying that that there's some of these songs are because his theory on Scarlet and Sheba was Sonny finds two girls that are willing, has sex with them, then kills them, and filled with lyrics about bondage, and then Fresh Blood he says here's another murder song, except on a larger scale, detailing the hunger for blood and the ruthlessness and randomness of victims. So he's making it out like a serial killer with multiple personalities is what the album is about.
I suppose.
Huh?
I suppose it could be.
But I guess this is what's great about albums.
Yeah, like an album like
you
this,
can make it what you
especially,
want it to be.
that's
Yeah.
it exactly.
and
Yeah.
something
What does it mean to you?
That's a good thought process. I think that's.
It's an interesting idea.
Yeah, I mean, you can take it that way and interpret it that way.
Because ultimately anybody can do that with any song, because what the artist may have written or had in mind when he created the song, or the team created the song, may not necessarily reflect that way exactly to the listener, because every listener is an individual person with different perspectives on things, so it means a million different things to a million different people.
Yeah, that can be true. Unless, of course, you do a Britney Spears tune.
Then it doesn't mean nothing
Then
to
it means
anyone.
nothing to anyone. Exactly.
Ooh, baby.
Yeah, I mean, I love these interpretations from fans
You're going to love the next one.
who take the time to actually look into this and feel something from it.
See, that's got to be about as flattering as it gets. That say somebody took this
Fantastic.
and
They
looked
took
the time to
so
do that.
far
And they wrote a whole
into it.
book on it.
Yeah, this guy wrote a long thing. And
So what's next?
okay, the last song on the album, Pass the Gun Around.
Love it.
This is his interpretation. He says, here's our climatic ending, in which comes a point of realization for Sonny. He sobers up and wakes up in a hotel room surrounded by the dead bodies of his killing spree. He wants to kill himself and let everyone that made him what he was get their shot at him. Pass the gun around, give everyone a shot, throw me in the local river, let me float away.
Pass the gun around. Give everyone a shot. Give everyone a shot. You gotta pass the gun around. And throw me in the local river. Let me float away.
Extremely sad and heartfelt song, as mentioned, and then he says, I mentioned above, Alice's fight for his life are really present in these lyrics, and you sympathize with him.
Right, well, you do it with the alcoholism, you do.
As amazing as this song is, musically and lyrically, this is a heartbreaking song to listen to when you think of what he was going through at that time. Because this
Yeah.
album pretty much sent him into rehab.
He was killing himself on alcohol.
Right.
Did he realize it? I mean, or was he
Well,
just having a
finally
good
knew it.
time?
It was finally brought, I mean, he wasn't having a good time. He was having a bad time. And he was desperately drunk. And he had this guy Landy, the guy that treated Brian Wilson,
Yeah.
the psychiatrist, traveling with him and feeding him pills. And he was drinking, he had pills and he was drinking it.
He was working with Alice?
Yeah, he
Oh,
was.
I didn't know
We
that.
went to Australia and I had to call Shep and say, you gotta get this guy out here, man. He's feeding Alice pills. Just trying to keep him sober to go on stage
Oh,
it was almost impossible, and so he was desperate, and they finally got him to go into rehab, and of course his life is completely changed now.
oh yeah.
He's totally straight.
Yeah, he's doing great.
and he's doing great. He's doing better than ever. And this song, Pass the Gun, that's exactly what it was. It was a cry out about dying from alcohol.
Yeah, so this song is basically him realizing how bad shape he was in.
Yeah.
Was this written near the end of the time you guys were doing the record?
Yeah.
Yeah. So things were coming to a head when this was made.
Yeah, I think that was the culmination of his real, because he and I were talking every night, about his alcoholism and how he was being treated by management and other people, and we really got into some in-depth conversations. So
Right.
I will not repeat, but that song came out at the end of it.
So this was almost therapeutic for him to
I think.
work through a lot of things.
I think so.
So it's an interesting album in that regard too, because who knows? I mean, going through this process with you and all working these things out in his head could have been what saved him and got him to go into rehab and get cleaned up.
Might have.
Because especially if he had the wrong influences around him, steering him the wrong way.
Well,
And
he'd already been in rehab a couple of times.
He'd
at
been
this
in
point,
rehab,
right?
but he, because of going to Toronto and he didn't want to go, he started drinking.
Oh yeah. So the old
And
habits
he had
came
stopped
back.
drinking for a little while. And he immediately started drinking.
Right.
And I gotta say, I was probably supportive of it in a way because I drank with him.
Right.
But I was never really a drinker, so
Yeah.
the alcohol was, I want to say fun, but it wasn't that much fun either. We were like drunk every day.
Right.
Yeah.
I had to fall into bed drunk and wake up drunk, but then I got Black Forest cake.
Yeah.
So we created a lot at the time. Even there were no drugs, there was no cocaine around.
I was going to ask about that because I know the early '80s were difficult for Bob with a cocaine problem. Because I've heard numerous stories
me
about
too.
that.
Me
Yeah.
too.
So
Many years of
Yeah.
drug addiction,
Right.
and
What the heck are Black Forest cakes?
it's a cake. It's a piece of cake. Black Forest cake. It's chocolate and raspberry and something else. And it's called Black Forest cake.
I thought it was going
You never had
be
a
like
piece of Black Forest cake?
No, I don't think so.
Try
I thought
it.
you were
Never
like
had it.
talking about it was like
Try it.
a name for hash or something.
No.
I had my Black
No.
Forest cake, man. I was good.
No, Black Forest cake. You gotta try it sometime.
I'm going to have to.
Yeah.
Listeners, check
Indoors.
out Black Forest Cake. Before we get off past the gun around, I have to compliment you. This is one of the best guitar solos I've ever heard.
Yeah,
Thank
for
you.
sure.
Anytime somebody wants an example of a great solo, I play this.
Great.
It's
Thank you,
it's
Chris.
one of your best pieces of work.
I feel very good about it too. It was just great when we got the delays set on it.
Yeah.
So it was just right, and it just
It
was
builds and
inspired.
builds. Yeah, it's a real high point of the album.
Yeah.
So I mean that's the nice song. I wanted to talk to you about a couple of things on a side note. You did this partially at ESP Studios in Buttonville, Ontario. There's a quote in here from a man named John Jones, one of the co-owners of the studio. And I don't know if you've heard this or not, but let me just read you the quote. He says, "I was a co-owner along with D. Long of the band Klaatu of ESP Studios in Buttonville. Alice was with us for over a month in the early 80s, and he and I spent many hours together hoping Bob would stay busy in the studio rather than come out to the front of the old barn and tear Alice's head off for not having a lyric ready that Bob liked." And he says, "Many pages of very cool words were crumpled up and thrown in the bin." And he says it was It was an insane time with many hours of grueling programming of the Fairlight CMI. And he says that as it turned out, when the album was delivered to WB, they were not expecting them to record an album. They thought Bob and Alice would just take the budget, and that would conclude the years of recording that he did with formerly Warner Brothers.
Right.
So, and then he said, "Alice, Bob, and Dick were our first real clients in ESP Studio. They gave us credibility in the Toronto music business, as well as teaching us all a million lessons in music recording and especially Alice life. I haven't seen him since 1981 or so. When I lived in England, I tried to call him a number of times but never got through. In my career in D's, we never forget the role the three mad superstars played in our ever-evolving musical lives." So
So you made an impact, that's for
Yeah.
sure.
I thought that was a nice quote from
That is fantastic.
Yeah, so
Wow. That was great.
yeah, and then an interesting credit on the album is special thanks to Judge Joseph A. Wagner. So was people's
Dun,
court
dun.
on quite a bit during
People's
the song?
Court, Alice, it made everybody has to stand when Judge Wapner would walk in.
Seriously?
Because he was always watching it, and if you were sitting there with him, everybody had to stand.
Wow. Dun, 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 dun.
I mean, his involvement in television programs is like that. I mean,
Is he pretty obsessive about stuff like
obsessive about stuff like
Yeah.
that.
That's funny though.
Yeah, but funny. You know.
that? Yeah. So, did Judge Wapner ever send a thank you card or anything?
I don't know.
Well,
Get out of jail free card, Anna.
yeah, but the,
So when this album, I mean, it's wrapped up, it's done. You turn it over to Warner Brothers. You know, they're not going to do anything with it. Was there any thoughts or even plans of maybe touring on this?
No, never a mention of it. No.
So once this is wrapped up, then where does everybody go? I mean, Alice, he goes back to rehab one more time? And is that how?
He did eventually go back to rehab. Yeah,
yeah,
he left to Toronto, went back to Phoenix, drinking,
right.
and then they had to turn him around again. I forget whether we went to Australia after that or. I know we went to Australia when I was working on Mark Farner's album in Toronto. Was producing his first solo album. I got a call. They wanted me to go to Australia with Alice. And I said, I can't leave here. I'm finishing this project. So Shep called me up and he said, I'll make you a deal you can't refuse. And he gave me like an astronomical amount of money per day.
Right.
And I had only 2 days left on the mixes of Mark, so I hurried as fast as I could, 24 hours a day, working on that album to finish it. I finished it at 8 o'clock in the morning. I went to the airport and flew 40 hours
Oh,
to Perth, Australia, to join them.
was this for
Because Alice
shows?
said he would not do this to her
Uh-huh.
unless I was there.
So you guys were still able, I mean, DaDa wasn't a big hit in the United States, but it got some good attention in the UK. Was it getting good attention in Australia too? Is that why
I
you
don't
guys
know.
were able to?
I don't know, but we went for a tour there. We took Nightmare there again.
Yeah, so you guys didn't play nothing off the DaDa album.
No,
in
nothing's
Australia.
ever been
We
played.
never
live.
played anything live off DaDa.
Was there ever any discussion saying, hey, maybe we should put Scarlet and Sheba in the set? Nothing like that?
No. All that stuff about what they're going to do live takes place in other places.
Yeah.
You know, it has nothing to do with me.
Yeah.
They just pay me, I play guitar, I put on my best show, do the best I can do, and then we go home. You know, it's pretty cut and dried business.
So, like I said, when you guys were putting it together, you knew Warner was not going to push it. So when it didn't do much, you were probably like, "Well, I'm not surprised anyway."
Right, I
Yeah.
wasn't surprised. I
Yeah.
mean, there was bad blood at Warner Brothers, really. And so the record got done, the contract was fulfilled, and then Alice started doing stuff for other labels.
Yeah. And did you stay in contact with him after that?
I'm still in contact.
Oh, I know you are now, but like during that comeback
Because
period.
was this your first, last, or I should say last full album with Alice?
I think
for a
this is the
while?
last one.
Yeah.
I'm trying to remember the sequence, but do you know the sequence?
This was the last full one you did with him,
That
yeah.
was the last
Yeah.
full one.
And then you came back to help work on Brutal Planet.
No, I didn't work on Brutal
Oh, I thought
Planet.
I'm thinking of the wrong album.
No.
Or was
no.
it? No, you did Hey Stupid. You did.
Hey Stupid and
Might as well be on Mars.
Mars.
That's a great
Yeah.
song.
Yeah, that was a good song. That started out, I wrote that melody and the first couple of verses as another whole song that I had written. I wrote it back in the early 80s.
Oh,
I
really?
wrote that piece of music, the melody and everything for it.
Mm-hmm.
And then I brought it to Alice, and we turned it into Might As Well Be on Mars.
Well, that's why when I first heard it, I was like, okay, this sounds like old school Alice on an album that sounded more new school, because it stood out.
Yeah.
When I heard it, I was like, this sounds like the
Oh,
classic
it's one of our
stuff.
best songs.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it
because
is.
that album really does have a contemporary feel for the types of metal bands that were out at that time.
right?
Yeah.
Except for that song.
That song
sounds
stands out.
like it would fit in more around this era
Yeah.
than it did at what was
Yeah.
going on at that time.
It's a great melody.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wrote that the whole opening, taxi driver swerving lane to lane.
Mm-hmm.
It was a part of another song that I wrote for a girlfriend that was giving me a hard time.
Oh, okay.
But
Do you find that works when your girlfriend's giving you a hard time? You
oh,
write her
yeah.
a song, she gets
Fuck
off your
yes,
case
I write. No, I just write good songs when I'm
when you're pissed.
either pissed or despondent. One or the
Yeah.
other.
It doesn't bring out
It
good
depends.
stuff.
You know, sometimes they break your heart and you write great songs. Sometimes they fuck around on you, you write great songs.
Right.
Yeah.
Sometimes they piss you off and you write great songs. So my relationship with females is, it varies a little, you know. Sometimes I love them and I write great love songs. Sometimes I fucking hate them. And I still write a great song because
just in a different way.
I like the one you did last night about messing around with another man's woman.
yeah, that's a good
Put
blues.
your dick in the dirt. That was fantastic.
So to wrap things up, it seems like DaDa is a particularly special album to you.
It is.
Yeah.
It's very special to me. It was not my favorite. I think it is my favorite Alice Cooper album.
Yeah.
Nightmare also. I mean, you gotta love the thing that launches the whole your whole career, basically.
Right.
I love Go to Hell too. I think that's a good record.
Yeah, I like that one a lot.
What else did I do with him? I did
From the Inside.
that is a classic.
Yeah.
That I would say you could actually, honestly, put on the Beatles' Abbey Road and play that right after it, and you'd have the same aura.
Right.
It's that good. It really is that good.
Absolutely.
That was with David Foster and me and Alice and who else is writing with us? Bernie Taupin.
Bernie Taupin, yeah. Yeah, there's a...
Like How You Gonna See Me Now, that song, for instance.
Right.
I was at the piano, Bernie and Alice walk in with this lyric from the inside. And I just sat there and just read those lyrics and that was it. It was written like in 10 minutes.
Yeah.
It just is such a natural song.
Wow.
And I knew that was a hit as soon as I was done. It's like, wow, this is the song.
Seems like the best stuff comes out that way, too.
It's like, it just comes out of you, you know. I can't explain it.
It's almost like from
just
some different source bringing it out of
It
you.
is, sort of.
Yeah. So,
Kind of like a don't overthink it kind of a thing. Just
I
go
don't
with the
think about it
feeling.
at all. I just let it flow from my heart, whatever that is.
well, you know, I'm glad we got to do this again with you. And a few months ago, I sent you a message on Facebook and had my fingers crossed, and I was like, "Do you want to talk about DaDa?" And you were like, "Yeah, it's one of my favorite albums." I was like, because some people you don't know. Some people are like, "Oh, I wish I'd never done that album." You
Right,
know?
exactly.
So,
No, I'm very proud of the DaDa album.
good.
And
Well, I know a lot of fans of yours and Alice Cooper are going to be happy to hear all these behind-the-scenes stories of the album.
thanks for talking to me again.
Oh.
I enjoyed it. I hope I didn't cry too much.
No,
But you made me tear up.
That's the emotion that came out on the album, right?
I think, yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it takes an emotional person to be able to create this kind of stuff, you know, and it shows in you that you got so much love for the music and so much power in your creativity that, you know, whether it's live on a stage or creating in a studio, Dick, you've come out with some amazing stuff over the years. And, you know, I speak on behalf of the fans of our show here. You know, we appreciate you and we thank you very much for all you've done.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thanks, Aaron.
got it, man.
Thanks, Chris.
Oh, no problem. Thanks for
I
doing this for
appreciate
us.
you guys. You guys are amazing. You